What's up, Christ Centered Mental Health community? This is me, David Lee Trusarche, representing Christ Centered Mental Health, the ministry where I talk about mental health awareness from a Christian perspective in order to give you real hope in Jesus' name to the glory of God the Father by the power of the Holy Spirit. Alright, before I get started on this video, I have a couple announcements for those of you that are new to the channel. I just want to let you know that this channel does have a Facebook group called Christ Centered Mental Health Discussion Group, and there's a Facebook page called Christ Centered Mental Health Discussion Page. Both the group and the page serve for the purpose of allowing the subscribers of this channel to interact with one another, interact with me, give me content ideas, and to just be made aware of what's going on with the ministry. So like and follow the page and join the group. Also, me and my wife started a group called Holy Matrimony and Mental Illness. It's for those of you who are in married relationships that deal with mental illness. And it can be any kind of mental illness. It could be bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, like anything, PTSD, personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder. It could be anything. It's as long as you deal with some kind of mental illness and you're in a married relationship, a committed married relationship, and you're both Christian. And so it's for those of us who are in these relationships that want to encourage one another, give each other sound biblical wisdom, and just have fellowship. So join if you're in this situation, if this describes you, please consider joining the group. Also, there's the local Christ Center Mental Health Meetup that's going to meet on the 16th of March at 1 p.m. If you live in Toledo, Ohio, please consider joining the meetup. You have to download the meetup app. I want to get to know you, so please meet up with me. Check out the meetup, and like we're gonna meet up like coffee shops and places like that to discuss faith and mental illness issues and just have Bible study and just enjoy one of each other's company. So the links to all this will be in the description box below. So yeah. So as you can tell, the title of this video is titled Renaming Schizophrenia. It's been brought to my attention that some mental health professionals in Massachusetts, I can't say that word, I know I can't. I have trouble pronouncing Massachusetts. Yeah. Anyways, it's been brought to my attention that some people, some mental health professionals in that state, I'm just gonna say that state, but in that state, they want to rename the term schizophrenia, and the reason why they want to rename the term schizophrenia, I mean, it is for a noble cause. It is admirable why they want to do it. I mean, I get what the purpose why they want to rename the term schizophrenia is because they think it's going to reduce stigma, because they think the word schizophrenia has too much loaded baggage to it. Like when people hear the word schizophrenia, they have all these automatic assumptions about it. They think that, I mean, generally people think when they think of schizophrenia, they think of multiple personalities. They think the person is like violent or gonna hurt them or stuff like that. So they think by renaming the word schizophrenia to something else, they want to rename it to, well, they have 9 different names that they're deciding on. One of them is altered perception syndrome, and they want to rename it to one of these names because they think by renaming it, it's going to reduce the stigma on on schizophrenia. And I mean, by renaming it, it will. I mean, I can see how it would cause the general public to rethink their definition of schizophrenia, or at least it should. I can see that. Now, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about them? I honestly, I don't think they should rename the term schizophrenia. I don't think that renaming the term schizophrenia is going to do anything about the stigma that's on schizophrenia. I don't think so. I think if you want to reduce the stigma on schizophrenia, I think the problem is not in the name itself. The problem is in the stigma. So if you want to reduce the stigma, the best way to go about it is only through proper education and for more and more people to come out and talk about it. Like it's not about renaming it. Like cuz like even if we do rename the term schizophrenia to altered perception syndrome, even if we do rename it to that, then there's just going to be a stigma on altered perception syndrome, and people are going to have all kinds of loaded assumptions about altered perception syndrome. So you did by renaming it, you just push the problem back further. You didn't actually solve the problem. So I think more people like me and other people need to come out of the woodworks and talk about their personal experiences with schizophrenia, and they also need to. We also need to provide proper education about schizophrenia. Like more mental health professionals need to come out and educate people on what schizophrenia is, what it's about, how to treat it, and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and I just don't think that there's any need to change already established terms. Like everybody knows about schizophrenia. It's already an established term. Like we don't need to reinvent the wheel by changing the word to something different because I don't know, I just don't see any point in it. It seems like a fruitless endeavor for one, and it just seems meaningless to me. It doesn't. I don't see like how it would be beneficial to rename the term schizophrenia. Now, for the next part, I do want to share with you guys an article that I want to talk about the article a little bit, but I'm going to share this article, the link to the article in the description box below, so you guys can read it for yourself. Here it is right here. Well, I don't know if you guys can see that actually. It says some mental health advocates in Massachusetts want a new name for schizophrenia. All right, so it starts off. It says when someone is diagnosed with schizophrenia, a psychotic disorder marked by delusional thinking, they often experience fear and anxiety. Like honestly, like when I was first diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, I didn't experience fear and anxiety when I was first. I mean, but then again, I was already when I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I was already in treatment for mental illness because I was already going through seeing a psychiatrist and going through counseling for bipolar type 1. And so I was already open about my mental illness. So when my psychiatrist told me that I have schizoaffective disorder, I just felt relieved that I finally had found something that actually makes it, that actually describes exactly what I'm going through. Because bipolar type 1 didn't exactly seem to make sense to me. Like there was a lot of things that did make sense about bipolar type 1, but when I finally realized what schizoaffective disorder was and how it's schizophrenia with a mood disorder, like it's like it just made sense. Like it's like my the things that I was experiencing were finally put into a perspective that made sense to me. So I felt a sense of relief, not fear. But I understand that that's not the same for everybody who gets diagnosed with schizophrenia. Like most people that are brand new to the area of mental health, when they first get diagnosed with any kind of mental illness, it is a fearful thing. I remember when I was first diagnosed with bipolar, I did feel fearful. I mean, that fear eventually turned into anger towards God, but initially, yes, I did feel fear. Like because I didn't know what to expect. Like I thought I was gonna be destined to live a life, like pretty much in and out of psychiatric hospitals, like my mom was. So, like it was definitely a fearful thing when I was first diagnosed with mental illness. So I understand how someone that's first diagnosed with mental illness is afraid. And by the way, if you are coming across my channel for the first time and you've just been diagnosed with a mental illness and you don't know how to handle it, please check out my video titled Forgiving God When You're Diagnosed with Mental Illness. I think that video will really help you. So check that video out. Yeah. So it goes on to say a group of Massachusetts based researchers and advocates say changing the name of mental illness could go a long way to reducing its stigma. I don't think it would reduce the stigma. I've already discussed this. I don't think changing the I think that changing the name would be irrelevant to the stigma of schizophrenia. Like I don't think it will do anything to the stigma. All it will do is, like I said, we changed the name to alter perception syndrome. Okay, well now the stigma is going to be against alter perception syndrome. Like you did absolutely nothing about the stigma against our mental illness itself. You just now people have common misunderstandings of alter perception syndrome, and instead of David Sarche on Christ Center Mental Health making videos about schizophrenia, now I'm making videos about people's common misconceptions about alter perception syndrome. Like, so and I mean, my one of my favorite channels, Living Well with Schizophrenia, she would have to change her YouTube name to Living Well with Altered Perception Syndrome. Like, so you would do nothing about the stigma towards schizophrenia. You would just push back the stigma towards something, a different name. But people would still have their misunderstandings and judgments about the mental illness itself. So I don't think changing the name will do anything. Um, it goes on. It says, talk about how she came up with this idea. It says, on a recent afternoon, Linda Larson hurried through her apartment building in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and didn't answer interview questions until she got through the lobby to the parking lot. And then she said, people probably think of me as eccentric, which is fine. She said, but I don't want to go over the details of what it meant to be diagnosed with schizophrenia in front of. Larson nodded toward a building manager and a few other residents rolling about at the mailboxes. As it happens, this interview was about the stigma of schizophrenia and how people think when they hear the term. It's kind of like sociopath, but worse, Larson said. There's no expectation except violence and disengagement. That is true. Like, a lot of people, when they think of schizophrenia, they do think that people are violent. And like I've said many times before, that like most people with schizophrenia are more of a danger to themselves than other people. And actually, studies also show that people with schizophrenia are more likely to be the victims of a crime than be the victimizers. So, then it goes on. That's why Larson, 74, is among those advocating for a new name for schizophrenia. In fact, she came up with one while sitting with friends at a cafe. She was trying to explain what it was like to live with a psychotic illness for decades. And she said, I said, it's like altered perception. Your perception doesn't read the way other people do. It's altered by the illness, she said. So, altered perception syndrome became one of the alternative names suggested by a group Larson is involved with called the Consumer Advisory Board. It's part of the Massachusetts Mental Health Center based in Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. It says, together with researchers, the Consumer Advisory Board recently put out a survey to about 1,200 people diagnosed with schizophrenia, their family members, mental health professionals, government officials, and others. They wanted to get a sense of how many stakeholders would like to change the name schizophrenia. Like, I would like to know how many of these people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia were in favor, like not their family members or government officials or mental health professionals. I want to know how many specifically of the schizophrenia patients that they surveyed actually said they were in favor of changing the name. Because I don't think it was very. I don't think it must have been very many, but I mean it could have been. And even if it was, like, honestly, like, people, like, honestly, I'm just gonna be real with you. I guess if they're making such a big deal out of this, like they want to change. Honestly, people in Massachusetts obviously have nothing better to do with their lives if they're wanting to do something irrelevant like this. Like I mean, there's more important causes to fight for than changing the name schizophrenia when it's not going to do absolutely anything. I guarantee you, if they do pass this to make to try and change the name schizophrenia to altered perception syndrome, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be irrelevant. I guarantee. I'd be willing to bet money, like cold hard cash, that it's not going to do anything to reduce the stigma. It's just gonna. It's not like it's not gonna do it. It's gonna be. It's gonna be a meaningless action. So, like, yeah, I think there's more important causes to take up, and especially there's more important causes in the mental health field, in the mental health realm, that to take up than to try and change the name of schizophrenia. Like, for instance, if you want to fight stigma against mental illness, then fight the stigma against mental illness. Actively work to educate people and raise awareness of mental illness. That's part of the reason why I do what I do on my channel. Is I'm raising awareness about mental illness, and I'm educating the church on mental illness because I want to reduce the stigma of mental illness that's in the church. Like, so, like, if you want to fight against the stigma, then fight against the stigma. But you don't need to rename already established terms to do that. Then it kind of goes on. It talks about the history. It gives like a brief history. It says schizophrenia was given its name more than 100 years ago when Dr. Eugene Buehler described the disorder as splitting of psychological functions. So he used the Greek words for split mind or schizophrenia. Yeah, then they mentioned, they put a quote here. It says, I think that schizophrenia in particular is so misused in terms of our language and how it's portrayed in the media. Said, I'm gonna butcher this name, but Meshulam Gottlieb. People just randomly and casually throwing out the term, oh, he's so schizophrenic, that's so schizophrenic, that you don't hear that as much with other kinds of conditions. That is true. Like, you do. Well, I'm more likely I hear people more say, oh, he's so bipolar, or that's so bipolar, or the weather's bipolar. That's what I hear mainly. I don't really hear that's so schizophrenic. But I mean, this is why, like, I do agree, language does matter. The language you use does matter. And it does, like, the type of language you use will either feed into the stigma or fight against the stigma. And this is why I am against terms like saying words like that's crazy, or you're crazy, or stuff like that. I don't like the word crazy. I don't like saying insane or stuff like that. Or like, I mean, I don't make that big of a deal because I know I'm guilty of it myself. I've said things like, oh, that's crazy before, or I said, oh, this weather's so bipolar, or Colorado's weather's so bipolar. Like, I've made that mistake before. So I don't really harp on it too much, but I don't like it. I don't like I don't like that because I know it feeds into the stigma, and it causes people like us to be alienated from society. So I think we should, as a society, we should get away from using those types of words. Like, so yeah. Then it says 3/4 of the survey respondents said they want a new name for schizophrenia. In addition to altered perception syndrome, other suggestions include attunement disorder, integration disorder, and disconnectivity syndrome. Like, those other names, okay, so attunement disorder, integration disorder, and disconnectivity syndrome, those sound just as bad as altered perception syndrome. Like, again, these, like, no matter what you change the name to, it's not going to do anything about the stigma. So you change the name to attunement disorder. Now people are going to be having a stigma against attunement disorder. You change the name to integration disorder or disconnectivity disorder or disconnectivity syndrome. Now people are going to have a stigma against integration disorder and disconnectivity syndrome. Like, it's not going to, you see what I hope you can, by this point, you can get my point. That it's not going to do anything about the stigma. And it says 3/4 of the survey respondents said they want a new name for schizophrenia. 3/4? Really? Like, are those people, again, are these people the mental health professionals and their family members? Or are these people the actual patients themselves? Like that's what I want to know. Like, because I have a hard time believing that anybody who is a schizophrenic patient like myself or the friends that I know or other people out there that have schizophrenia, I have a hard time thinking that people with schizophrenia are going to be for changing the name of schizophrenia. Like, I don't think that they're going to really be about, like, every single one of us is going to be like, well, that's not going to do anything to reduce the stigma. Like, I'm pretty sure if you watch any other YouTuber that talks about their struggle with schizophrenia, they'll probably say the same thing that I'm saying. And if they don't, well, I guess we can respectfully disagree. But, like, yeah. Then it kind of goes into, like, her history. She talks about her history as a teenager dealing with schizophrenia. It's quite interesting. If you want to read it, I'm not going to read it right now. But if you want to check it out, you could read the article for yourself. Well, what else? Uh, uh, so there was a quote in here from someone who was against it that I wanted to share. I gotta find it. Um, I think she made a good point. Um, okay, I think this is it right here. She said, "I don't." This she said, "I don't want to deny that language is very powerful, and it can really impact us." She said, "But there are other diagnoses too that you wouldn't want to get. But let's talk. Let's make it okay to have that disorder, rather than be afraid of that word." Like, and I agree with that. That wasn't the quote though. Um, anyways, I can't find it right now. But anyways, like she was basically making the point that I made about she was basically making the point that I made about that reduced that the problem is not the mental illness itself. The problem is the stigma against the mental illness, and that's what we need to focus on. I feel like and I agree with that. I feel like changing the name of schizophrenia is going to um puts too much of a focus on the name itself, and instead when we should be focusing on the illness. Like, the problem is not the name. Like, we shouldn't be focusing on the name. It doesn't matter if you call it schizophrenia or ultra perception syndrome or attunement disorder, whatever the other names were that they were wanting to name it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you call it. You could call it Chakalak for all I care. Like, it's not gonna do anything about the stigma. Like, what we should focus on is reducing the stigma. We should and the only way to reduce the stigma is by raising awareness on schizophrenia and by educating people about schizophrenia. That's the only way. Like, there is no other way to reduce the stigma. Changing the name is not going to do anything. Like, so I think we should focus on that instead of focusing on the name. Anyways, so that's all I have to say about that. Like, let me know what you guys think. I like to know. I like to know what your guys' comments are, or what your guys' thoughts are on this topic. Do you think if you're someone who struggles with schizophrenia and you think we should change the name, please post your comment in the comment section below and let me know why you think that we should change the name of schizophrenia. And if you don't think we should change the name, then please comment that too and let me know why you think we shouldn't change the name. Like, I would like to get a conversation going on this. So let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you think about if we should change the name or not change the name. If you think I'm completely off base, let me know too. You'll say, "Hey, David, I think you're off base about this. I don't see anything wrong with changing the name." Or if you think, "Hey, David, I agree with you. You're totally right on. Like, I think you're absolutely, like, let me know. I want to know, like, what you think." Anyway, so that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Like, if you like this video, please leave a like and please subscribe to this channel. I make videos as much as I can, so you won't be disappointed. Also, if you find merit in this ministry, please feel as you feel led by the Lord, please consider supporting the ministry. You could donate to the Patreon amount, any amount that you want. And then when you do donate to the ministry, you'll have access to a private Discord community for online peer support and fellowship with other believers, and you'll also other believers who struggle with mental illness. So, like, please feel free to join. And also, you have access to a daily devotional on mental health and faith, and you'll and Monday through Friday, anyways. Like, not on the weekends. I take a break on the weekends, but you'll have access to a daily devotional on mental illness and faith, and you'll yeah. So, like, feel free. And also, for a limited time, any proceeds that a portion of all the proceeds that I receive from Patreon will go towards helping a friend of mine and my wife's from church help her and her husband raise the funds to adopt a child. So, and this child needs a family. So, by donating to the Patreon, you'll be helping a child get a family. So, please consider donating to the Patreon account. Yeah. So, also check out my Twitter account, my Tumblr account. Check out my Twitter account, my Tumblr account, my Christian apologetics blog, and also check out the new TikTok account for the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry. The link to all this will be in the description box below, so you can check all that out, and also check out the Christ Center Mental Health podcast as well. And also, for those of you that are struggling, that need some kind of extra peer support, I do want to make myself available, and I want to make myself available to you. So please feel free, if you want to if you need some peer support, you can give me a call. I'll post the number to the ministry line in the description box below, so you guys can call me. It's a 24-hour line. If I don't answer when you first call me, leave a voicemail and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Also, Eric Verby also is making himself available. I will post his information in the description box below. So if you can't get a hold of me, or if you want to talk to him instead of talking to me, you could talk to him as well. So, yeah. Anyways, so let me know what you guys. Let me know. Like, I'm gonna post his number, but he said he's only available for his own phone number will only be available until the 31st, between, I think he said, 10 and 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But he he is available all the time through email and his Facebook page. So I'm gonna post all that all his information in the description box below. So you could contact either me or Egbert. You can contact me either my Facebook. You can contact me through the ministry line or the ministry email. All right, that's all I have to say. Let me know what you guys think about any of this that I said. Have a good day. God bless you, and stay strong in the Lord. All right.